Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today, the rules changes involving sagas have gone live on Magic Online. This is a new rule change that's coming in with Final Fantasy set, but it's already up on Magic Online ahead of the pre-releases. So, that rule change, basically for our purposes, means that Blood Moon no longer destroys Urza Saga. So normally, your Urza Saga would die as soon as a Blood Moon entered play. The rule change has made that this is no longer going to happen. And what's more is the Urza Saga will retain the abilities that it was already gained in the game. So, if we play Urza Saga and then play Blood Moon, Urza Saga will be able to tap for colourless mana, whilst also being a mountain. However, if it's got two counters on it, so it's gained the second ability to make constructs, and then we play the Blood Moon, it will stay in play, it won't gain any new counters, and will be able to keep making constructs. And that is quite strong. So we're seeing how strong that is today. This is going to be a big part of our beatdown plan in this Painter list. Painter is definitely, the first place that my mind went to here because it's already like a mono red deck that sometimes played Blood Moons in the sideboard and kind of tripped on itself a little bit to do it, but this card is obviously very powerful. But now we can play it without actually having any real drawback. In fact, we get a bonus now because our Urza Saga can just sit there chunking out constructs, and that will beat a fair few amount of people. So, as for the Painter deck, we have 4 Painted Servant, we have 3 Grindstone. Grindstone targets our opponent. Because all the cards in the library were the same colour, it will mill them out because it keeps repeating. We've got some blasts that we can use with our Painter to blow stuff up. We've got the best sort of mid-rangey red card in Legacy, Fable the Mirror Breaker. This allows us to loot to find things we want. It allows us to copy Painters and do some cool stuff with them as well, so it's harder for our opponent to interact with our Painter combo. Like if they're holding up a removal spell, if we've got the reflection, we can just copy this, and that's going to be really annoying for our opponents. We are playing the One Ring here because when you're playing a deck with fast mana, I think you should be playing the One Ring because this card is really busted. We've got Karn, which helps us find Grindstones. Finding Grindstones might be more difficult if our Sagas are going to get locked underneath the Blood Moons, because we'll never get to the 3rd chapter, so we won't be able to tutor for our Grindstone, which is why we've gone up to 3 Grindstones. We've got Karns to pull one out of the sideboard. We've got some Legion Extruders. These can deal some damage and stuff and just create some tokens. I don't play a lot of Painter, but I know a lot of Painter players are pretty high on this, so I want to try it out today. We've got some Lightning Bolts here, just a nice piece of generic removal to go alongside our Legion Extruder. Our mana base involves Ancient Tombs and City of Traitors. I've got a Sokenzan in here. Sometimes it's nice to have just a little bit of extra power that you can call upon at random times, and these hasty tokens have won me games in the past. We've got a Sundering Eruption as well. We've got a couple of Chrome Mox so that we can try and put out an early Blood Moon, which can just shut some people down because that's the thing we get to do now. A long ways back, before the times of Urza Saga, Painter Servant was a Blood Moon deck. And it obviously moved away from that when it went into Saga, and it was now a tool that is sometimes leaned on. But now we're right back, and hopefully it's going to be a good time, like the good old days. Sideboard-wise, we've got some Removal and Fury, we've got some Lay on the Voids, because Oops All Spells and Blue-Black Reanimator are the 2 best decks in the format right now. We have Untimely Malfunction. This is just a Braid. This could be basically a Braid. It could be any sort of effect like that, but it's got some different modes to a Braid. So we've got the Furies that can blow up creatures. We've got our Lightning Bolts and our Legion Extruder. So this is going to have some different things, so we can maybe make it so our opponent can't block, so we can get an Alpha Strike through with our mid-rangey plan. And also changing the target of a spell or ability can sometimes be really interesting too. But this could be a Braid. It doesn't really matter that much what this is, I don't think. But this is a more interesting card I want to try it today. We've got One Ring that we can grab with the Karn. We've got ourselves an Ensnaring Bridge if we need to hide behind it while we assemble our combo. Some generically good Disruptor Flutes to mess with certain decks. Pithing Needle, Grindstone, Cage, and Tormod's Crypt. These are all things that we can get off of a Saga if we want to board them in, or we can just have them on our sideboard to grab with a Karn. So normally we'll be boarding in the Cage, but we'll leave the Crypt in the board, so that way when we have 4 mana we can go and get a piece of Graveyard Hate that we can use immediately. And that, lovely people, is the deck. Please like and subscribe, and let's just see how busted this new interaction of Urza Saga and Blood Moon is. If you're going to MagicCon Las Vegas this year, from the 20th of June to the 22nd of June, you can catch my sponsor 3-for-1 Trading there. They'll be buying up collections as well as selling some well-priced singles to help you get all that sweet legacy goodness that you need for your deck. Okay, this hand is pretty fair looking, but we're going to give it a whirl. Like, we've got lands and spells, we can interact a little bit. We can play the Urza Saga game and do the One Ring stuff. It seems fine. If we're in a situation where the Red Blast is good, then this hand is great. And a lot of decks, the Red Blast is good against at the moment. An island. Looks like our Red Blast is going to be on. Alright, so we're probably just going to start off with a mountain, I think. And we can hold this Red Blast in case there's something like Tamil or something we want to interact with. Flooded Strand doesn't really tell us much more about what's going on. Alright, we've got something in the second main phase here. Another island. A Lotus Petal. Okay. What are we about there, opponent? A stock up. I will take a little Red Blast on a stock up. It does kind of nail our colours to the mast in terms of what we're doing here. So, blue and... So, 2 islands. Getting the stock up. Okay, so they're trading 2 cards to get 2 new cards. So, all the things that our opponent showed us made me think that we're playing against an Omnitel deck list. It could be a Sneak and Show deck list still, but I think we're looking more towards Omnitel with a double island rather than any sort of red sources. A Lightning Bolt. I'll play out this Saga. I think I will play the Legion Extruder here. Because this is going to get some damage going, it's going to be an additional artifact for the purposes of our as a side count. We do need to try and clock our opponent before they can assemble their combo. And our mana is spoken for next turn anyway, so we may as well try and be efficient. And given the fact that we think our opponent is playing Omnitel, we're not really going to be leveraging this Legion Extruder to do anything next turn anyway. So we have a choice next turn whether or not we go for a one ring plan or we go for the constructs. Now, the one ring would be the way that we dig towards our combo, but our combo is not very good against a deck that's got Emeralds in. So I'm just going to play out some artifacts here, start making constructs and try and kill our opponent before they find their combo and kill us. I suspect we will not be quick enough here. A Ponder, okay. So they need land and show and tell to win here. And there are situations where they can show and tell something in that maybe we don't care about that much. It's unlikely, but we could like possibly get through an Atraxa and Pyroblast, and if they're unlucky with their hits off it, then they're going to need to rebuild and try and find another show and tell. Chances are we will lose to that, but I'll take some outside chances. Alright, let's make a friend. Let's make another friend. What do we have to grab here? So we can get the Soul Guide Lantern so that when we start doing the Grindstone stuff, we can actually answer our opponent. I think I like that. Alright, we'll just take out one of their stock ups in case they've got a way of returning it. I'll play the Saga. So what we can do is we can surprise our opponent with a 3-3 here. They might think they're getting another turn if they like can answer one of our guys or something. Alright, we have a show and tell in here. I guess we'll put in a Simian Spirit Guide. It's an Omniscience. That is an Emrakul. So our plan here is draw a card off of this and see if we can draw a Blue Blast. No. So we lose 6 permanents here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I don't think we're coming back from that. Couldn't quite do enough to our opponent, but we have a bunch of Red Blasts that we can use. What looks good? The Disruptor Flute's naming show and tell feels pretty good here. The Ensnaring Bridge probably doesn't matter that much because they can just, once they have Omniscience, they're just going to draw through their whole deck and then they can Cunning Wish for bounce spells. So it's not actually that useful. If we want to try and Grindstone our opponent out, it is not the easiest thing to do. I'm kind of tempted to just trim some like Grindstone-y type stuff. The problem is the Blood Moons aren't great against our opponent either. So maybe we'll just trim on some of these things and try and win with like Karn type stuff. Alright, I don't feel great about this matchup. Omnitel hasn't been performing that well of late. So it's not something that's putting up great numbers. But it is something you have to be aware of in the format. We could just try and Blood Moon our opponent turn 1. And that will sometimes work. If our opponent's just got fetch lands, we can just shut them off of playing the game. It's a bit of a T-strap, but I think given this matchup doesn't seem... Well, I guess like we do have a bunch of Pyroblasts, but the problem is they probably have the Mistrise village in their deck, and they do have a bunch of counter magic. They just need to resolve one thing. So, I don't know, we'll try the turn 1 Blood Moon and see if that being on the play just shuts our opponent out of the game completely. It is a little bit awkward for us in terms of the amount of mana we're going to have left over, but we'll still have this Pyroblast that we can cast. Alright, so we're getting a Force of Will, Pitching Impulse. We sort of wanted the Blood Moon to resolve so we can have access to this Pyroblast. But a Soul Land gives us Karn, which is reasonable. A red source gives us Pyroblast, and then we can... Sorry, it gives us a Pyroblast, also gives us the Painter, so we can even Pyroblast the land if we want to. They shuffle off the Ponder. Another Pyroblast. Okay. Have a Painter. Yeah, it's like our opponent has a thing that means that we can't just grind them out with Grindstone. We need to make it a 3-card combo with a piece of Graveyard Hate as well. Now, we do have Pyroblast to answer their thing, but the problem is they can overload our stuff quite handily. Okay. What do you got for us? I'll put in this Legion Extruder. Is Legion Extruder better than an Emrakul? I don't think it is. Okay. So, how do we beat this Emrakul? Sokenzan probably isn't the one. We can Pyroblast. We can't Pyroblast this because it has protection from spells that are 1 or more colours. We don't have the mana to redo anything. We just lose all our permanents. Alright, we're in the bin. Let's get around to. This is a weird hand. We can turn to Blood Moon, or we can turn to Fable. Probably turn to Fable is okay here. But we've got a turn that we can draw another red card and then sort of reappraise the situation. A Lotus Petal. Are we going to die on turn 1 to oops all spells? No, we might die to something else though. This could be the Epic Storm. This could be like Black Saga Storm. I got a lot of resources there. Dark Ritual. Burning Wish. We cracking some LEDs here? We are. So this is enough for a Peer into the Abyss line. If they want it. I think Peer into the Abyss is 8. Or is it 7? Beseech the Mirror. Okay, so then they can go and get a Gaia's Will here. And then replay all these things. And then they have the tendrils ready to go. Pretty straightforward. Yep, so this is just going to let them replay Lotus Petal, Lion's Eye Diamond, Mox Opal. That's a lot of mana. And a lot of Storm. And then they just have the tendrils already in the bin. So we will join those tendrils and jump into the bin. Okay. I guess Leyline of the Void interacts with our opponent. So that's something. Nothing here really matters. So that's not great. We could board in the cage. Just have another bit of Graveyard Hate. But our opponent can win without the Graveyard, which is kind of awkward. Maybe blowing up on a fact like this can be relevant. Like the Karn is great. I'm a big fan of having Karn in this matchup. We don't need Lightning Bolts. And we don't need Legion Extruder. And that leaves us just needing one more cut to fit this in. How useful is the Blood Moon? Not exceptionally. I'll take one of those out. Disruptor Flute. Yeah, that's probably better than Blood Moons, isn't it? Okay. Well, let's try this. So we're seeing the sort of downside of trying to do this like as a Saga thing. Because what we're doing is kind of slow. So what do we do here? Nothing on turn 1. Nothing really on turn 2. That's just not good enough against the Storm deck. Okay, so we have turn 1. We can cage and shut something down. And then we can play Saga and start making some guys. Alternatively, we play Saga on 1. That gives us Karn on 3. Because we can go and get the Petal off of this. And I think getting Karn down on turn 3 is pretty good. Maybe the Grafdigger's Cage stops them having like a turn 1 hand. So maybe they need to sculpt for a turn or 2. So I think we do play the Saga on 1. Because we need to actually interact with what our opponent's doing. So we've got Cage on 1. Then we can Untimely Malfunction and blow up an artifact that they hang out. And then we can go and get Karn. And that should be hopefully enough to get us somewhere. Karn is going to be tricky for our opponent to beat most of the time. Not impossible though. You know, they can still beseech Dark Ritual, all that sort of jazz. But if we shut off the Gaia's Will, that makes life a bit easier. What goes back? Regrettably, it probably is the One Ring here. We can just get one with the Karn later on anyway. So I will be playing this out first just so we can work our way to a turn earlier on our Karn. Alright. This shuts down one of our opponent's lines. But their deck is certainly multifaceted, so this is unlikely to stop them. But if it's enough of a speed bump to get us to Karn, that's all we need. And then hopefully this can be another speed bump. Scalding Tarn. We're getting Thoughtseized. Looks like we're getting Thoughtseized. No, Dark Ritual. They're going on turn 1. Chrome Mox. Gamble. Mox Opal. So this doesn't stop Beseech the Mirror. It stops Beseech the Mirror for Guy's Will, though, because it takes the card, then exiles it, and then you cast from exile. This only cares about you cast cards from libraries or graveyards. So they can still, like, Beseech the Mirror for another Beseech the Mirror and sort of chain them that way, or they can go and get the Song of Creation and start popping off that way. Right, another Chrome Mox. This is not going to imprint anything. So they can Beseech here. If they Beseech for another Beseech, then another Beseech, then another Beseech. Yeah, so they should have it here, just chaining Beseeches. Should be pretty straightforward for our opponent, I think. Burning Wish. Okay, so they have to do it a little bit differently here, but they go and get the Beseech from the sideboard here. They still have the mana to cast it. They can bargain this Chrome Mox, then they can bargain this Mox Opal, then they can bargain this Chrome Mox, and then they can kill us. Yep. So this is the second Beseech. This will be the third that puts up to 9, which then gets them the Tendrils, which will be exactly lethal. Look, sometimes you're going to get turn 1 twice in a row, and that's Magic the Gathering. Let's go to round 3. At least our opponent's deck here wasn't actually designed... You know, it's not designed to just turn 1 people all the time. It actually quite often plays some protracted games as well. Alright, on to round 3. Whilst I may not play Pauper, I know a lot of you lovely people out there do, so I thought I'd let you know about a great charity Pauper tournament happening in upstate New York on the 21st of June. The tournament is in support of the Trevor Project and Trans Lifeline, so sign up to help a worthy cause and have fun doing it. It's a troubling time for our trans comrades out there, so show them that you've got their back. Click the link in the description of this video for more details. Alright, let's see if our opponent wants to play some more reasonable Magic the Gathering. This is a turn 2 Fable. That's a perfectly fair thing to do. We've got a Red Blast, so we can maybe hit some Echo Vions out of some really spooky decks. Okay, our opponent's mulling into 5. We're just going to get wombo comboed on turn 1. At least the show and tell player, they killed us on turn 2 in game 2, you know. I've not played the most amount of turns this league so far. Urza Saga. Alright, our opponent might be in a similar sort of vein to what we're doing. Chalice for 0. Okay. Sure, I will dump out this Fable. So yes, we will only get one more tap of this City of Traitors if we want to play a land next turn, but we're going to be getting some treasure tokens, and that should be a big deal. Is our opponent going to play a Blood Moon now? No, they're just going to make some constructs. So they can make a 2-2. Would I trade my Goblin Shaman token for an Urza Saga? I think so, because the Urza Saga is about to get bigger anyway. What are we shipping away here? I think we're probably going to bin off just a couple of Red Blasts here. Let's go to attacks. So now I will play the One Ring. Now we're going to get into a pretty silly game, I suspect, of doing like Blood Moon standoff. Because our opponent can't play a Blood Moon once our Saga goes to 2. They have to wait for it to die, same way as we couldn't play one anyway. Now I'm not sure how good Blood Moon is going to be in this matchup in general anyway. But it might just be a thing that we have to keep now because it shuts our opponent's Sagas down if we play it at the right time. So, weird. Alright, so we're getting another construct here. Our opponent might be more of like a mono-red Stompy with Urza Sagas in, rather than being like a painted deck like we are. A Shadow Spear and another Saga. Okay. So, we didn't... I guess there's no point in them attacking there, is there? Okay. So we've got this One Ring ticking up. Let's try and get there. So we have a kill next turn with our Painter, if we can survive. We could play a Blood Moon, shut off some of what our opponent is up to. So this will stop them getting stuff, but then we won't... If we play the Blood Moon here, we don't get to tutor with our Saga. So we kind of don't want to do that. So we're probably doing Ancient Tomb here. So we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we don't want to play the Painter now into Sorcery Speed removal like Fury and stuff. So Maybe we're not supposed to play the Ancient Tomb then. We're supposed to have played just a mountain and play the Ancient Tomb next turn. Do I need to attack with this Goblin Shaman token? I don't believe that is the case. Then we just pass here and then we kill our opponent next turn. Right, 8 damages. I think I'm going to make a construct here. I'm willing to just save a little bit of life. Because this game is not about these creatures on the board, really. The game is about making sure that we don't die before we paint a servant our opponent to death. A mountain. Magus of the Moon. That is okay. We don't get to do the Urza Saga trick now and get rid of this. So we don't have our Grindstone, but we do have the One Ring. Let's draw some more cards. Okay, there is a bunch of options available to us here. We can start cranking out some tokens. We don't actually need to do that though. We can Painter and then Red Blast something. And play our mountain here. So we can Legion Extruder this creature away. Our opponent's got 3 cards in hand. How worried do I have to be about their 3 cards? So I could play Painter. But I don't think we need to play the Painter just yet, do we? So this is 2. So we can put a treasure in front of something and then... Sorry, we can put like a creature in front of some... Like once we get an artifact creature, we can put that in front and then just keep cycling around. I think I'm going to play out the Painter here and hold up the Red Blast. So this is 8 damage. Do I want to just Red Blast there as a Saga right now? Kind of tempted to. We only have 1 Red Blast in hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. So in theory we don't need this other token. Right, I think we'll preserve our life total here. Am I Pyroblasting this Saga right now? I think so. We don't want our opponent to two-drop something spooky. Like the Swifty Boots. If they make another guy, make some Swifty Boots, that gets kind of awkward for us. Alright, they're just scooping it up. I think we had a lot of choices in that game that work out for us. We could have, instead, we could have just played the Painter, blown up their Urza Saga, then we had the Urza Saga factory and they don't, and then we win that game as well. Alright, we have an opponent who wants to play some actual Magic the Gathering, which is kind of exciting. Okay, so I want some Furies. We're probably going to want some Untimely Malfunction. I don't think we're on the Disruptor Flutes, which is going to be a weird one. I guess we're just boarding our Blood Moons, right? I guess we don't need the Soul Guide Lantern. That probably comes out first, and then we'll just get rid of a couple of Blood Moons. Yeah, this game is going to be proper weird, because it's going to be a case of, like, who is going to be the one to play some sort of Blood Moon effect? Because normally in a mono red matchup, you're not going to want the Blood Moons, but then whoever decides what the Sagas in play are sticking on probably gets to win. Weird little sub-game. So what do I want to do here? I think I want to play a turn 1 Fable of the Mirror Breaker. I think I'll keep this. So we can City of Traitors, put the Red Blast underneath the Chrome Mox. Manifold Key. Alright. A Blood Moon. Let's get this. Let's imprint the Red Blast here and just get our powerful mid-rangey spell out. And we can filter some cards, like, do we want this Blood Moon? Uncertain. Chalice for 1. Okay, so we can just get rid of some 1-drops, that's fine. Let's see what we draw, and then we can make an educated decision. Alright. Yes, we get rid of this Grindstone, and so we can keep the Blood Moon and just stop this Urza Saga ticking up for a bit, which is interesting. I think we'd probably end up getting rid of the Spirit Guide. Or is it the Mountain? Let's get rid of the Mountain. Okay, we did draw another land, but it does come at a cost. So, first things first, we want to attack and get our treasure. How much am I bothered by Urza Saga here? Do I think just playing the One Ring is going to get us where we need to be? So we could Sundering Eruption this land. We could play a Blood Moon. And then we won't lose our If we play a Blood Moon, then we can Sundering Eruption as a land, use this treasure token and this to then play another Fable. That sounds pretty good. And we won't lose our Blood Moon either. So this is what I mean about who gets to set when the Blood Moon comes in and shuts off the Saga. So I'll play this, it's a mountain. And then I'll cast this Fable. This means that if we draw any 1-drops, we don't care about them because they're just going to get binned off to the Fable next turn. Alright, our opponent's just had enough. Like, our start there was pretty strong. But yeah, 3 rounds in, we're on the board. Let's go to round number 4. Okay. Turn 1, we play this and this. So we get this and this out. Okay, this is a turn 2 goldfish. I guess we'll keep it. It's not necessarily what you want to be doing with Painter's Servant, but given how quickly our opponents have been bodying us today, maybe we do want to do that. Okay. So I would like to get this Chrome Mox in first. I'm going to imprint a Simian Spirit Guide, I think. So, what do I want to do here? I can play the Painter and hold up the Pyroblast. That seems good. Alright, let's do that. And then we can just answer anything, in theory. So we can Pyroblast a Force, we can Pyroblast an Entomb, whatever. And then next turn we have 4 mana, which is enough to play and activate a Grindstone. You can Brainstorm, that's fine. And when we play the Grindstone, they might have to like Force, and then just to stop us from having the mana to kill them next turn. And Entomb. Is this where we're fighting, or are we expecting to try and win the game next turn? I think this is just an Entomb to shuffle. I'm going to let this Entomb go, because we're trying to win the game next turn anyway. And what if we hit that, and then they just Thoughtseize our Grindstone? We're going to feel pretty bad. We may as well try and capitalize on the condensed nature of this game. See, there's a Ponder here. So we are rewarded for not hitting that Entomb, which is normally something you don't want to do. You don't want an Entomb to resolve. I don't even want Entomb to be in the format, let alone resolve. So you need to be pretty careful about it. Okay, let's play a Grindstone. Our opponent probably has to react to this. Oh wow, we just didn't, are we? Alright, we Goldfish our opponent on turn 2. Take that, Reanimator. Okay, let's get in 4 Leyline of the Void and a Graph Digger's Cage, please. I think that's all we require. Possibly Untimely Malfunction, because our opponent might be running a Null Rod, which is obviously not our best friend. Now, we could ignore that and just hope that Painter plus Blast get there against it, which is a reasonable thing to assume. Now, these 5 cards, what do we want to take out for them? I don't think trying to resolve big spells against the Daze deck is a wonderful place to be. The only problem with that is the quality of the One Ring is pretty absurd as a Magic the Gathering card. Legion Extruder. I don't think we need this. Do we need Lightning Bolts? Like, how bothered by their fair plan are we? Like, I'm not super bothered by it. Maybe we do just take out, like, the fair removal stuff, because if they're just playing things like Barragoyce, then these red spells aren't going to kill them anyway. So we're just going to be leaning on the Pyroblast to do it. And then we have, like, an Ensnaring Bridge we can grab with the Karn if that's the case. A turn to Fable the Mirror Breaker. That's, I think, good enough. I heard you have some graveyard stuff there, opponent. I'm going to keep this. I think I will keep this, and we probably end up getting rid of the Blood Moon here. So this means we don't have to worry about getting reanimated on super early. And then we can kind of just ease our way into the game here. Now we can play and crack a Soulguide Lantern on turn 1 and just use this as a cantrip because we've kind of already got the graveyard covered. That does expose us to things like Brazen Borrow bouncing this later on. But I think that's fine. We just want to be able to get deeper into our deck, really. Get that second land. There's nothing for this to exile. Just cycling this to go and get ourselves another land, please. Because we could leave this in play to try and, you know, completely shut off the graveyard. But then if we don't make any additional land drops and we get Wasteland or something, that's just the end of the game. So I think this is going to be a cycle if it resolves. I don't know why our opponent would counterspell this though. Okay, we found the other land, so we can make the One Ring next turn. We can make Karn next turn. I think I'm more into making Karn because the One Ring is actually the bigger prize. It's very hard to lose with a One Ring ticking around. Wasteland. Alright, that's horrible. Bit rude, but we have Ancient Tomb. I'm going to play a Painter here. If they want to counterspell this with like a Daze, that's a Daze that's not been pointed at one of our big 4-drops, which is going to be more impactful. There we go. Force of Will, Pitching Ponder. So no Daze in our opponent's hand there, unless they were just really worried about a Simian Spirit Guide or something. And this means that we're way more likely to just resolve the One Ring or Karn. If we draw a red mana... Okay, there's another Wasteland. Okay. Back into the dirt. Alright. I was going to say, if we drew a red mana source, then we could play the Karn first, and the following turn we can then hold up. I don't want to play against this. Counter-target spell if it's blue. They didn't have a Daze before, and I'd rather have the mana on our turn in case you draw something like a Fable or a Simian Spirit Guide. Alright, so they drew the Daze this turn. Cool. But at least they don't have much in the way of mana. So they can play their land now. But I wanted to do that then because I wanted access to the Fable next turn, or possibly one of these 4-drops if we draw a bit of fast mana. Alternatively, we can just draw absolutely nothing. Are we supposed to play out this City of Traitors or not? I think we are, but it does leave us somewhat exposed to a bunch of things our opponent has. Now, they probably only have one more Wasteland in their deck, so we don't have to worry about them too much. Are we just going to get Flip Tamiyo all up in our business? This will be their second draw for the turn. They need one more to flip it. We do have 4 blasts in our deck that can answer the Tamiyo, so we're better against it than some decks. Alright, this Thoughtseize sucks for us. Like, we still get to play one of our big sort of 4-drop haymakers potentially next turn, but the chances of playing the One Ring, which is the card I think is best, have definitely decreased here. Oh, they took the Karn. Okay. Should I be worried about that? I don't know. Alright. Did you draw yet another Daze? And they did not. And we just have the One Ring now. Okay. I feel pretty happy. Yeah, you crack that clue token. So they're bashing in with Tamiyo. Maybe they're just worried about us shutting off their clue tokens. But that's... I don't know. Have you read this card? It's pretty good. I guess the fact that Tamiyo doesn't actually pressure anything, it just draws you cards, means that it's a bit awkward to deal with a Karn for them. Alright, let's draw some cards. And we missed on land, so that's not great. We do just have to pass it over. If something like an Orcish Bowmasters comes down, we could be in a spot of bother. But we'll see what happens here. They've been somewhat aggressive about cracking these clues, so maybe they'll just crack the clues and not have Bowmaster mana for us to have to worry about. Bowmaster is like the one thing that makes me want to keep a Lightning Bolt in here, but I just don't think it's worth it, really. Because it's only really for the One Ring. Yes, it can stop the Fable, but you can just choose not to do that. A Barragoyf. Okay, that's good news for us. That's not a Bowmasters. So we get to have 3 additional cards next turn. We can always re-up on the One Ring. We can play some blockers to go in front of it. Now, obviously, Barragoyf is a problematic card. You know, it's a big, scary monster. It can win the game quite quickly. Our life total is pretty low due to this One Ring anyway. But surely, if we're just drawing, you know, way more cards than our opponent, that should be enough. Alright, let's draw some cards. Painter's Servant. Hello. Let's play this Mountain. Let's play this Painter's Servant. It's named Blue. Let's blast this Barragoyf. Another Daze. That is annoying for us. So the way Barragoyf works into our ley line means that when they connect with us, they will mill a bunch of cards. They choose one of those cards, even though the cards are going to exile. Because Barragoyf doesn't care about where the cards go. It just cares about the cards that have been moved around. It's the same as Gyruda. Alright, so we're going to take 5 here. And then we're going to take 3 from the One Ring. And then we're going to play another copy of the One Ring. Alright, cracking a clue. Thought seizing us. this is a problem, because this can take our One Ring here. So at the time of recording, the Blue-Black Reanimator deck has the second highest number of top 8s since Tarkir Dragonstorm came out, only by 1. And I imagine by the time you see this video, it will have the most. Well, we're dead if we do, we're dead if we don't, really. Okay. I can work with this. Chrome Mox. Let's imprint this Blood Moon. Let's play out this Lotus Petal. Got a nice little red blast as well. Stick the Grindstone. Let's grind you out there, opponent. Yeah. And they all go into exile as well because of the ley line. Alright. I thought we were just going to get cooked there when they took our One Ring. But it turns out, if you just keep drawing cards with a One Ring, you probably fit together your A plus B combo. Alright, this league has been super fast. We're 2-2 going into the final round, so there is a positive on the board. And we haven't done the Urza Saga trick yet, really. Although we kind of had it in play against the mono red deck, but it wasn't really what the game was about. Alright, on to the final round. For the best Eternal experience this summer, check out Eternal Mania in Hasselt, Belgium from August 8th to 10th. Aside from hosting the European Legacy Masters, they have a whole host of other tournaments from team trios to old school and pre-modern. I will be there playing Legacy and hanging out as a special guest. This will also be the first event that I'll be giving out my own special Marit Lage tokens, so why not come down to enjoy an awesome weekend ran by one of the best TOs in Europe. Okay, I would like more mana. I think I'm going to send this hand back. Turn 2 One Ring is not an easy thing to pass up. I'll keep this, and I'm going to get rid of a Pyroblast, because if we get Wastelanded, then I would like to at least be able to play the One Ring another turn down the line. Alright, Ancient Tomb. I think we also play out the Grindstone here. I don't know if this 2 life is going to be that relevant. We shall see. This might make our opponent fearful of getting killed on turn 2, because if we have a Spirit Guide, we could deploy enough to kill our opponent. Not a fan of a blue source if we're trying to resolve this One Ring. And the lands we have mean that it's not great for us to try and hold off to play around things like Daze, because we have to invest a lot of resources up front to this One Ring, and then if they have the force of will for it, then we've invested just like, 2 City of Traitors into doing it, more or less. Or, depending on how quickly we can draw a red source. Now, if we draw a red source now, then I can take it turn slow and have mana to pay around either Daze or then Pyroblast or Force. Like, we'd lose to both, potentially, but, there's still other draws in our deck after that. So, Mountain would be an interesting draw. Okay, now that is even better, I suppose. Just play the One Ring. We can play around Daze. We can also beat Force of Will. Or our opponent can have nothing. Jeez. Does this mean they're doing a combo that doesn't care about this sort of stuff? Possibly. But we've got a Pyroblast that can maybe get us through like a show and tell turn. Our opponent says they're a fan of my videos and it got them into Legacy. So I'm curious what they're playing. I'm going to be playing something with Shark Typhoons. Or Staff the Storyteller. Okay, I think we just let this Brainstorm go. Like, we have to remember that this Pyroblast is not just a Pyroblast. It's a Pyroblast and a Simian Spirit Guide. So it's kind of like a Force of Will. Now, we can certainly spew off cards because we have the One Ring. Our opponent could be playing Dreadnought. That could be interesting here. Just to ponder. Sure, our opponent is moving cards around a lot. But we are drawing lots of cards. If we can draw a Painted Servant, we can win the game next turn. With Pyroblast backup. We got 3 draws to find the Painter right now, while our opponent is tapped out. Another Red Blast certainly doesn't hurt. What do I want to do with this? I've been presented. Okay. I'm playing this map. I'm just trying to decide if I want to Grindstone my opponent. If we do want to Grindstone the opponent, we have to use our Ancient Tomb, because I kind of like the information. They didn't shuffle off the Ponder, so I think I will Grindstone them here. They kept cards on top. Okay, so there was a Nadu they kept on top. You can have a Narcomoeba. So they're on breakfast. Understood. We have 2 blasts to deal with various breakfasty things. So we can counterspell Ceph Illusionist, we can counterspell Nardus. Now, Cavern of Souls is going to be in our opponent's deck, and that's a thing that we can't interact with very easily right now. But yeah, they left a Nardu on top, and we managed to get rid of it, so that felt pretty good. Because it was the Brainstorm and the Nardu on top, and then it flipped over the Narcomoeba and the Nomads because these 2 cards share a colour. Something that brings me a lot of joy when playing Painter is when you do like just a fair Grindstone on someone. It doesn't happen very often, but that sort of brings me a lot of joy. Alright, so let's Pyroblast this guy. Counter target spell if it's blue, please. I don't want these Ceph Illusionists in my life right now. Ooh, we get a force here. Sure, you can force my Pyroblast. See, this is just the advantage of the One Ring here. We get to fight quite easily over stuff. If they got a Daze here, then we can pay as well. But it'll be a secret pay that they didn't see coming. Alright, a Brainstorm from our opponent. We're going to be drawing 4 cards on our next turn. Okay, deck. Didn't find the thing we wanted, but we did find a Soul Guide Lantern, which is not nothing. I think I'll take a Chrome Mox imprinting a Simian Spirit Guide here. Just let the Simian Spirit Guide give us mana forever instead of just a one-off burst. And then I think we play the Soul Guide Lantern here. Just have the graveyard covered in case they do assemble the Illusionist combo. They don't currently have green mana for Nardu. But they could play a land, like a Trop or something, and then go Nardu and Nomads. And that is something that we can beat with our deck because we have an infinite combo. I say infinite, it's like an A plus B combo. It infinitely mills, my guess, you could say. I'll play a Mountain here. And I will deploy the Soul Guide Lantern. What am I worried about that our opponent has over there? I'll just take out the Nardu, I suppose. I don't think it actually matters what we take out. I don't think we're going to try and fairly Grindstone our opponent out. But we could like Grindstone them, and then if we hit the Thassa's Oracle, then we can get rid of that, and that's just that plan entirely gone. But I think it's better to save our life rather than tap in this Ancient Tomb. And just enjoy the bounty that is the One Ring. Ah, Blood Moon. That's something our opponent's going to have to answer, isn't it? I'm a little bit worried about our life total. This Ancient Tomb is not our friend. Let's cast a Blood Moon. Shut them off with white mana. Means we can tap our Ancient Tomb for mana as well, and then deploy something like a Magus. Force of Will pitching Nardu. Okay, so they didn't like that very much. Let's try and cast this pitching Spirit Guide. I don't really want to tap this for... Okay. I think we passed. We might have to crack the Soul Guide Lantern because we're dying to our One Ring very soon. So we take 1 here, then we take 4. So that's 6. Sorry, that's 5, and that puts us down to 2. So I think I'm going to crack the Soul Guide Lantern for a card in our opponent's end step here. Like, we've shut off a bunch of their stuff. The thing that's most likely to kill us right now is the One Ring. This only taps for red now, so we don't have to take any pain for it. Okay, we got 5 additional cards coming our way. Another copy of the One Ring is fine. A Karn is probably fine. Is a Karn fine? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, Karn isn't actually fine, is it? Painter obviously is the best thing because then we just get to win the game. What's our opponent playing there? I don't think they have something like a Dress Down. Memory's Journey. They would like to shuffle in some stuff that we have. Sure. So they're trying to make our draws worse off this One Ring. Like, you got to do what you got to do, right? They just need to fade 1 turn of our One Ring. Karn the Great Creator. Doesn't quite do what we need it to do. Okay, we found a Painter. That is the one we were after. Is our opponent dead? We name blue. And then we mill them out. Because of the Blood Moon, they can't play the Thassa's Oracle, the Memory's Journey in their upkeep. So they don't get to stop themselves from dying. Ooh, that was surprisingly tight. If we want to stop the Cephalid Illusionist combo specifically, then Leyline of the Void is very good for that, as is the Grafdigger's Cage. The Fury is pretty good at sweeping out just some of their annoying guys that are hanging around. So there's a bunch of options here. Legion Extruder versus Fury is an interesting one. I think Fury is just better, but do we want more of that effect? Possibly. Karn shuts down Shuko, which is not nothing. Do we need to be less on the Grindstone plan? So we can shave some numbers here. I think so. But how far does that realistically get us? Can we... So we got 2 things we get to add in right now. So should that just be a couple of Furies? Like, presumably our deck is pretty good in this matchup. Like, we probably should take the Grafdigger's Cage, because we can shoot it for it, so it's kind of more than just one slot, so the value we get is higher. But when would getting Grafdigger's Cage be better than getting a Saga Lantern? I guess we can double up on them. I'm kind of just tempted to have the Furies here. Like, Blood Moon is very good against our opponent's deck. And you just remove some of their guys, and they can sandbag stuff, but we do have 1 mana counter spells, and we have the removal. Alright, I'm going to try it like this. Maybe I'm wrong not to board in these ley lines. It is something that can stop our opponent's turn 2 send, but it's also something that's face up to do that. So what does this hand do? This hand makes a turn 2 Fable the Mirror Breaker into the One Ring. That is pretty good, but if our opponent has any of their combo-y type hands, we do just die. I think we need to mulligan a little bit. This hand is turn 2 Blood Moon. Doesn't seem great on the draw. Our opponent's mulligan to 5 though. I'm going to keep this and get rid of 1 Blood Moon. I think if we're on 6 and our opponent's on 5, I'm happy to keep this. If our opponent just sends it on turn 2, so be it. But if they will need to sculpt and play a game that takes a little bit longer, then sure. We don't want to see Nomads or Shuko on turn 1. If they don't do that, then I think we're okay. There we go. We are okay. And Urza's Saga, you say? So we can play the Saga on 1 and then just turn it into... It's like, are we resolving... I'm going to play this out because this can also get us Graveyard Hate to get around the potential of the Cephalid Illusionist combo. But then this will go up to chapter 2, and then we can play the Blood Moon on 2, and then we just have a thing that can just pump out constructs every turn, and then we win the game. They obviously have access to 1 basic here. They now have access to 2 basics. Are they going to get those basics? Yes, it looks like they are. I think that is a wise move from our opponent. So now it kind of begs the question, are we supposed to play the Fable out instead of the Moon? I don't think so. I think the Moon is just a nice, powerful thing that we get to do. And we haven't really assembled this as our win condition before this league, so I kind of like to try and get it going. A Lightning Bolt. Alright, let's try the thing. If they daze, it sets themselves back so they can't win next turn. If they force of will, that's 2 cards. Force of negation. Okay, so we could die next turn, but next turn we get the Graveyard Hate from this. So we're kind of covering our bases in different ways. I imagine we're going to see... Oh, no shuffle at the end of turn. Could have got like a Meticulous Archive. Let's float some mana of this. Are you going... Oh, they didn't get... They didn't crack their fetch land. We don't have the Pithy Needle in. Could have jammed our opponent up a little bit there. So there's 2 things I'm thinking about here. I think it should just be the Saga Lantern though. It's like whether or not I want to do Lightning Bolt. Alright, okay, let's get rid of the Brainstorm. So we could get a Chrome Mox, imprint the Lightning Bolt, and then try and cast the One Ring. I think I'm pretty content to just play a Fable. This card is pretty strong, can hopefully loot us towards something good. Our opponent not cracking this when we could have had a Pithy Needle was interesting to me. Especially since we saw they missed a land drop. Now sometimes you want to try and bait Pithy Needles out and stuff. So let's say they have to... But then you're just going to lose your land and it doesn't really feel worth it. But maybe they're holding this and they just don't think that we have the Pithy Needle in. I know, it's just an interesting thought. Alright. So I'll say yes to this. I'm going to get rid of just the Sokenzan, I think, here. Right. Let's attack with our Shaman token. This will get us the additional mana that we need to Lightning Bolt next turn, whilst also playing this One Ring. So it's going to be harder for our opponent to get through all of our nonsense. There's an argument to using the treasure so that we always have the mountain up for the bolt. This matchup feels pretty reasonable for the painter deck, to be honest. Alright. And we're just in the One Ring here. I kind of miss the days when painter decks were like Goblin decks and stuff, but now it's just, why would you not just play the One Ring? Card is just really, really busted. We're already playing fast mana, I guess we just do this. But I prefer the days of like Goblin Welders and Engineers being the main thing, because they were always really interesting and led to a lot of different play patterns. Made the deck very intricate, and some really good players out there could get a lot from it. If you would like to see a good player playing Painter, I highly recommend watching Lightwalker's channel. I'll put a link to their channel in the description as well. They make the best Painter content on the internet. Definitely, you should check them out. Also got some great banter, so there you are. Alright, our opponent is up to 3 mana now. What are we going to see? A Nomad's Encore, sure. We have a removal spell in hand. We also have the One Ring just doing One Ring things. A Blood Moon. Intriguing. First things first, let's draw some additional cards. Okay, we can probably assemble something representing a win this turn if we want to. So we attack with the Goblin token here. I think I want to play the Blood Moon out, so our opponent, because if we mill them, we can just set them up for Memory's Journey, and I don't think that's where I want to be. So I think we're going to play this Blood Moon first. We maybe didn't need to use the Ancient Tomb for that. Right, what are they fetching here? If they don't have another basic, they might just get a Meticulous Archive here and just try and get some selection first. Okay, so we've got a Trop. Are they going to float green? Veil of Summer. Intriguing. But we could always just name a different colour with our Painted Servant. So if we go... Is it worth playing the Painter out here? It opens us up to Swords to Plowshares at awkward timings. I'm going to play the Grindstone out. And then I'm going to pass. Like, we could have just tried to send the combo. And then, like, try and Saga Lantern them, but I think just getting our hooks in with a Blood Moon is fine. Like, we've got the One Ring here. We just need to make sure we don't do anything that maybe lets our opponent get through. Because we've got all the resources in the world now. Because we're about to draw 3 more cards. Okay. It doesn't really matter what land we play out. I'll play out this Urza Saga, which sticks around. What a time to be alive. Here is our Painted Servant. I will name white, green, we'll name green. And now we can Grindstone our opponent in relative comfort, I think. We have the Saga Lantern. So we'd like to plow our guy. So I will make a copy of my Painted Servant. Which will also name green. They can't have another plow because of the Blood Moon. So this is what I mean. We just got all of our hooks in and everything nicely in a row. Where did none of their Narcomoebas end up in there? We got the GGs from the opponent. I'm just going to crack this Saga Lantern. I guess we should still attack here. Alright, our opponent's just scooped it up. Okay, so we finished with a positive record. We got the 3-2 here. Not too shabby, but we didn't get to do the thing. So let's talk about the deck. So this league was basically us getting killed on turn 1 or 2, or it was the One Ring just absolutely taking over the game. It didn't really feel like, you know, all our other pieces definitely came together and were useful, right? You know, we were grinding people out. Having an A plus B combo in a One Ring deck always feels pretty bananas. But like a lot of our peripheral pieces, they sort of, you know, they were fine, and different pieces would have also been fine in a similar situation, right? You can kind of see why I think the blue Painter deck has got more top 8s since Tarka Dragonstorm came out than the red Painter builds. Because you have access to things like Force of Will to stop, you know, games like that, the ones where we were just getting killed on turn 1 or 2, right? So you can stop that. Whereas we don't have the most amount of tools to deal with that. Now, Lane on the Void is going to stop some of those things. But as we saw, our opponent just killed us on turn 1 through a ley line when they were playing Storm. So it's not always going to be getting you there. So the thing we really want to talk about is Urza's Saga. How did this card feel with the Blood Moon? Assembling the we've just got you, getting the dirt thing didn't really come up, but we weren't really in those sorts of matchups, were we? We were sort of in combo-y matchups. You know, we had the 2 combo decks that just bodied us quickly in the first couple of rounds. Then we had, Blue-Black Reanimator, which is, again, quite combo-y. We had Cephalid Breakfast, and then we had, like, the mono-red Stompy deck, which was obviously just going to be weird. So we didn't really get the matchups for it, but that's because the format's not really there for grinding lots of Saga value at the moment. The format is, okay, what's happening in the first 3 turns? Is it game ending? So, like, quite often at the moment in Legacy, just playing Saga on 1 so that you have a chance of getting your hate card on turn 3 is a thing you do more than leveraging the tokens. But if we do come across, like, Beanstalk matchups and can assemble, like, Saga plus Blood Moon, that's it. That's the game pretty much right there. So it definitely has use. I think what's really good here, though, is you no longer have to shoot yourself in the foot when you play a Blood Moon. So before, the painted decks were running Blood Moon in the sideboard. They would sometimes board them in because they were good in certain matchups and you needed, like, a big haymaker. But now we get to board them in or have them in the main deck, and it doesn't matter, right? Our Urza Saga just still gets to play Magic the Gathering. Now, sometimes we will sort of shoot ourselves in the foot by not being able to search for our Grindstone. We've obviously tried to alleviate this by putting an additional Grindstone in the main deck, and we have the Karn which can go and fetch them. I think the fact that it doesn't tread on your own toes is more of a deal than the fact that you can get the construct chain going. But, maybe when we get some bans in a few weeks' time, things will change up again, and then maybe the format will slow down, and then grinding all this Saga value will be one of the best things you can do. At the moment, this just feels like we're not doing anything as powerful as the most powerful decks, but I do still enjoy Painter a lot, and I think this deck is really sweet. I do wish that we could get rid of the One Ring and go back to playing Goblins. I think it's correct to be a One Ring build, because if you're playing a deck that can play this ahead of the curve and wants to play several turns of Magic, you should be playing the One Ring. This card is just pretty much the best thing you can do with 4 mana. And Painter is a perfect place for it, but I prefer to see, like, all the cool Goblin Welder shenanigans, because those decks are just much more enjoyable to watch and play and get beaten by. So yeah, Painter feels okay. I think it's going to be a beneficiary for when we do get some bans in a few weeks' time, because some of the format decks that are a bit fast can be a bit annoying for us, as we saw today. Alright, I hope you enjoy this one. I don't think the sky is quite falling on the Urza Saga Blood Moon thing. I think it is a very, very powerful thing to do, but I think it is very matchup dependent. So at the moment, the matchups where this is really, really good aren't necessarily that prevalent. But the quality of life here is really nice, just for this not dying to your own Blood Moon. Anyway, ramble over and done with. Please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.